Okay, one of this season's objectives was to sink 3 trenches at the south end of the Abbey. The reason why we did this was 2 or 3-fold. We sunk a trench at the far end there, trench 20. That was to investigate the possibility of a gatehouse. These 2 trenches were sank because we wanted to investigate the area for any archaeology. There has been talk that this part of the Abbey will have further use in the not too distant future, so we just wanted to make sure that there was no sort of archaeology that could be potentially destroyed.
Here we are in trench 20, just finishing some recording, but the digging is completely finished, so now we can summarize a little bit what has happened here in this trench, where lots of venturers have worked, like Tara or Nadia or even Rosanna. I just wanted to thank them for their work here in the trench number 20. Okay, I just want to remember that in the beginning the goal of this trench was to assess if we could find a gatehouse over here, because we have this whole footpath over here and also a ditch over there, so it looked like a proper place to display a gatehouse, a medieval gatehouse. What we found was a quiet, deep subsoil, okay, like maybe 25-30 centimeters, and we were maticking on it, just thinking that we were not going to find anything, just the natural, but in the end we could find these first bricks conforming a wall. Okay, we don't think this wall belongs to a medieval gatehouse, as it was like the first idea, but we'll talk about that later. I will go on with the process, okay, because digging the wall we realized that we had here the end of the wall, but it didn't look like the original end of the wall, like the terminus. It looked like if someone had spoiled the bricks or something like that, so we decided to section this area to see if we could have some clues to understand what had happened with the wall, with the part of the wall that we can see. And what we found was really interesting, because we saw this cut, which was a straight line here on the west of the trench. So we started digging it, and what we found here is these organic shapes, natural shapes. So we were thinking like, okay, we have a straight line that looks like human, but on the interior of that cut we find organic shapes. So maybe some animal, maybe evil rabbits again, maybe trees, whatever. But we remember some old photos of the Abbey, and in those photos we could see that here, running parallel to the footpath, beside the footpath, there was some kind of post fence and also some trees. So we guess that that's what we have here. This line was made, we have here clearly a post hole, and here these organic shapes that would be made by the roots of the trees. They are in line because they would be displayed in line parallel to the footpath. And what we could see is that the end of the wall is because of this fence. I mean, this would not be the original end of the wall, but it was removed during the plantation or the construction of this fence. Okay, and after that we knew why the wall was broken, but we didn't know how deep the wall was. In that moment we decided to display here this sondage to see if it could be like maybe 5 centimeters deeper or something like that. This was today, last day, and we didn't expect, of course, this depth of the wall. I went mad with my trowel, just troweling, trying to find the end of the wall, and in the end what we have here is really interesting, because I get to the natural, okay, and so they made this wall over the natural. Later on they filled up the basement of the wall with different kind of soils, and on top of this filling they built some kind of floor with a very yellow soil. So that makes us think that we are in the interior part of the wall. Okay, this is a little bit about the process. Now I want to talk a little bit about the conclusions, the summary of the trench, because we don't think that this wall belongs to a medieval gatehouse. Okay, the bricks are not medieval, are more like late Tudor, and maybe this moment has to do with the other gatehouse we can see over there that we know for sure it's a Tudor gatehouse. So we have like two options in the end. Could it be another Tudor gatehouse, or could it be like a enclosing wall of all the abbey? Well, what we know for sure is that the wall is massive, it's really thick wall, and also the basement is really deep because it's like 40 centimeters deep. You couldn't display a wall like this just for a small building or something like that. So if it's a building and not an external wall, it would be maybe like a 2 floors or 3 floors building, so maybe a really big gatehouse. Anyway, we couldn't get very much the function of the wall, but what we could get is some really important information about how the process of the abbey is, and maybe after the medieval occupation we can find this Tudor occupation and how it's related with more modern occupation or features like this post fence would be. So in the end we have had really good information, maybe not the information we expected, but in the end the soil tells us the story, not we don't make the story.
Okay, so this is Trench 21. There was a number of deposits in Trench 21. They had debris. This dark layer on the top here is 21002. This was full of organic remains, a hell of a lot of organic actually, and that included sheep, cow, the shells of oysters, other mollusks, fish bone. There was a great deal actually in this darkened layer. Below the darkened layer was 003. You can just see the slot there showing 003. We had a lot of CBM in that, more CBM in 003 than we had in 002, and less organic in 003, which shows kind of two phases of deposition. A few other features within this trench. We have the natural over the way there. There's a small kind of narrow gully transecting over the course of that. We're not sure the purpose of that small gully. Also in the corner there's a sloping sort of surface. We think that's part of the ditch, the boundary ditch that's over the way near the trees there. There's quite a lot of bioturbation in this trench. The examples are the rabbit holes in the middle of the trench there, and there's some damage done by tree roots at the northern end. And that is Trench 21. Trench 22, we had a good organic horizon in the top layer there. That was probably due to the allotments. They were in this area in the 40s. The interesting horizon was 003. This is 003 here. This had a lot of organic, a lot of oyster shell. It had a lot of CBM, and we're just thinking that this was probably dumped by the wall chasers in 1910 when they were chasing the walls in the abbey, excavating those without looking at the deposits that they were removing. The natural, you can see the natural there, it's quite shallow at this end, and we've put a few little sondages in just to make sure that we were down to the natural. So we did find a flint blade in the far corner there. You may remember this earlier on in the week. That was unfortunately redeposited. It wasn't actually, there's no prehistoric feature within this trench, so we think that it's probably been redeposited by the wall chasers possibly.